Hello everyone, in this video we are going to show you how to create your own AI that can answer the questions based on your custom knowledge base. So why do you have to create custom AI if you already have GPT? Well, you can ask ChatGPT something about the general knowledge base on the internet, like for example what is UX design or what is product management, and ChatGPT will give you a decent answer based on something it has seen before on the internet, and there is no way that ChatGPT can answer questions about the specific knowledge, for example about my specific user research, because there is no way it can access this data. And that's why I have decided to create my own AI. It's pretty easy, just few lines of code. We are going to use OpenAI API, so still we are going to use GPT-3 model, and we just upgrade it in that way that it knows about our custom context. How are we going to let this model know about our custom context? Well, we just give it in the prompt. You might ask, why cannot we then use just ChatGPT for that? Because we can give the context in the prompt also in ChatGPT. The problem is that usually user research databases are quite big, and if you want to implement any other custom knowledge database, it's usually big, so you cannot put everything just in one prompt. And that's why we have to create a little bit more flexible way to give the context in the prompt. And we are going to do this by breaking our knowledge database on small chunks and indexing these small chunks, so when we query our AI, it will be able to find the relevant context in all our database, and based on only this relevant context give us the answer. So we are not going to give all our knowledge in one prompt, in one query, but we are going to find the relevant knowledge and give only these pieces of information to our AI, and that's how it works pretty easy. So instead of going and giving all the content effects, we need to find a way to find a relevant context, and that's why we need an external library to do this. And that's why we cannot do it manually, but we have to do it in code. Indexing that data is not an easy task, but luckily for us there is already an open source library that we can use, so we don't have to go into the technical details how to do that, but we just need to figure out how to use this library. The library is called GPT Index, and it is also using GPT-3 API in order to break your data and make an index out of it. So we just need to figure out how to use it, and it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you now how I have assembled a small project in Google Colab notebook. It is called Colab environment. So the first thing that we need to do is to upload our data that we want to index, right? And if you want to use your custom knowledge database, then you need to create a folder here named input substance. I have called it input substance, but you can call it whatever you want and then just change the name here. So you create a folder with all the files from your knowledge database, and it will be there. I have prepared already a folder for you that we are going to use in this video, and these are just fake interviews, so I cannot share with you the real interviews because it's private information. I cannot share it, so I have decided to create fake interviews also with the ChatGPT team. I have actually asked ChatGPT to create an interview script for me about cooking habits and the use of domestic appliances. It created not a very good interview script, but for the sake of experiment I think that's fine. So after that I have asked the GPT to give me an interview script for these questions, and I gave it just example of what an interview is. So I created just a small use case like business professional living alone who tries to control on his diet, and for this small use case ChatGPT was able to give me an interview script that later I was using as the custom knowledge base. So in this example we are going to use a fake user research data. Unfortunately, it also means that we cannot get any really insightful information out of it. because still ChatGPT provides you quite blank data. So that's what we have. So I have created a repository for you that you can copy into your project, and there is already a piece of code for that. We are going just to run it, and what it does, it clones our Git repository that is here and add the information here. Now we have our input substance folder inside where we have all our interviews. You can check these interviews, interviewer questions and interview answers. So for examples, we are going to use just for interviews, of course. In the real scenarios, you are going to have much more. Then we need to install all the required dependencies. So we are going to use the ChatGPT Index library, and this library in turn uses the LangChain library. So we are going to use actually two libraries that we need to install. We install down dependencies, and now we are going to create our functions that we are going to use, and it's only a few lines of code, just two functions for us. So first we need to import everything that we need from GPT Index and LangChain, and if you want to learn more about it, you can just go to the documentation and it is written here. What you need are, you just copy it's the same, and then we are going to write just two functions. First one is construct index, and this function takes the directory path. In our case, it will be input substance, and it creates an index out of it. So instead of having just the raw data like we have here, it will create a JSON index here that will index all the information that it finds here. And that's all. The first thing that we are doing here is just setting parameters for the large language model that we are going to use. So it's just the parameters from OpenAI API, and you can also find the parameters here. So maximum length, the temperature that is responsible to how the answer of AI is different from one another. So if you ask the same question, will it be always the same transfer and then the temperature will be 0, or will it give for different answers and then the temperature will be higher? So you can read more about the settings for large language model in the OpenAI API documentation, and you can then play in the playground just asking questions. For example, what is UX design, and then checking what answer it will get. And that's what we are doing here. We set the parameters like maximum input size, we set that temperature, the model name, because there are different models and you can learn more in the OpenAI documentation. And after we set all the parameters, we are going to use the functions that are defined in the GPT Index library. So we just have to define our path that we are going to use to create our index, and that's basically all. After defining the path and loading the data, we are just creating the index and saving it to the local folder, and that's basically all what we do, just loading the data, running the index, and then saving the index in JSON format here. And then we have the second function, and what it does is only querying our AI model with the question and context information. So first identify the index that we are going to use, and then just query the AI with the user input. So here we ask a user to input something. What we inquiry do you wish to pose, and then we just query our AI with the context information and displaying everything in markdown format. So pretty easy. We just have to run this code, and for now you won't see anything because we just let this notebook know that these are our two functions. We didn't run them yet. Then we need to set our OpenAI API key. So in order to use OpenAI API, we need a key, and you can get it by signing up on their website. So after you sign up, you will have here API keys. So if I go here, view API keys, it will be there. If you don't have anything, you can create a new secret API. It will create an API for you that you can copy. I copy this one, press OK, and just go here and run the code. It will ask me to put my API key here. So that's what I will do. and you will do as well. I won't show you my key because you need to use your own, and the reason for this is because using OpenAI API is not free, but it's relatively cheap. Now it's time to construct our index. So remember, we defined the function here, construct index, and now we just need to run it with the path of the data that we want to index. So in our case, it's input substance, right? So we have created our index and it will appear here. And now what we need to do is just start asking questions. So it's quite exciting. Let's try. Remember, our data was about interviews about cooking and using domestic appliances, and the information from these interviews is what our AI will use to answer our questions. For example, I can ask what are the aspects of home cooking that people enjoy, because the interviews were about cooking at home and we were asking the question to our interviews. It transfers that people like cooking at home because it allows them to relax after a long day. It healthier and more affordable, and so on. So all this information was mentioned in our interviews. Unfortunately, this time it didn't break it down, but we actually can ask our AI also to break it down into clusters, and then it will be easier for us. Or for example, we can even ask to brainstorm something, for example marketing comparison, based on our interviews, and already use AI to brainstorm something about our project. And it's very exciting because now we can actually use AI to brainstorm with us, to brainstorm about our project based on our information. So it won't use just the general information about the internet, but it will use the information relevant to us in order to brainstorm more ideas. And that's it, just few lines of code. Actually, the only thing that we do, this is the install dependencies, it's just this one. So we just define the functions and then we just run the functions, and that's all. I hope you have learned something in this video, and now you are able to create your own AI that will use your custom knowledge database. Thank you for watching. See you all in the next video.